Hello everyone, Natasha here, and this is my first recorded reaction to the first 1,500 words of a manuscript. This manuscript today is coming from Jessie, and the novel is called The Red Tattoo. So we're going to jump right into it. I have not read it before, so let's see. I pulled a large rock from the collapsed mine shaft. It rolled down the pile of rocks and dirt made by the old collapse. More dirt slid down the pile of rubble to fill the hole left by the rock. I snarled and dug harder. Snarled. Is this an animal? Is this an animal? Dull claws scraping against rock and dry soil. Claws. Dirt from the tunnel ceiling ran down my shirt. But there's a shirt involved. I ignored it and pushed myself to dig faster. We needed somewhere safe to sleep. And a tent didn't count as safe, not when the company, capital C, could come down on us at any second. Savora, watch it. My brother Rolko held his clawed hands up, more claws, trying to keep my spray of rubble from flying into his eyes. I paused. Sorry. I stood and glared at the hole in front of me. We had to be almost through the rubble. A little more digging and we'd be into the mine system long before Mom got back from foraging with the other refugees. Rolko shook himself, throwing dust everywhere. Sunlight from the mine entrance illuminated the specks. He brushed the yellowish dirt from his chest and the rough along his jaws, exposing his reddish fur and black stripes. Some sort of fox animal, maybe? You should see yourself. He shook dirt from his tail and pants. I looked down at my dust-covered shirt and skirt. He had a point, but brushing off the dust now would do no good. I resumed digging. If only we'd had a shovel, but with the war on, even those had become scarce and expensive. Good thing we were Elbas. Elbas, capital E. Torfs never would have been able to, missing a 2 there, clear out a mine shaft. Not that they would have when they preferred tents to dens. I cleared the dirt and rock away until a hole formed. Let me reread that. Torfs never would have been able to clear out a mine shaft. Not that they would have when they preferred tents to dens. I cleared, so then, that sounded a little bit, okay, let me just keep the review for later. I cleared the dirt and rock away until a hole formed. I crawled through. With only a tiny bit of light shining through the hole I dug, I had to rely on senses other than my vision. I clicked a few times and perked my ears. My echolocation gave me a decent picture of the shaft. Oh, echolocation, nice. Past the one collapse, the old mine tunnel seemed clear. Rolko climbed through the hole. We're going to live here? I heard his triangular ears twitching, taking in the echoes that bounced off the walls. I brushed dirt from my fur, just until the war's over. If only Rolko was still young enough to think we'd win the war. But at 14, he had to know we'd been losing ever since the space cruiser Lusta got attacked, and the chicks threw their full support, chicks capital C, behind the company. Rolko touched the dry mine walls. His long ears and whiskers drooped. I walked a bit farther down the mine shaft. Cold air blew through my whiskers. If we wanted to live here, we'd have to find somewhere with fewer drafts. That meant more digging. I ran my claws along one of the walls. Bits of dry earth flaked off, but my claws found rock. It would be too hard-packed to dig by hand. We're going to need a shovel, I growled. We don't have enough coin for food, Rolko said. I snarled and slashed at the wall, my claws digging deep. Rolko stepped away from me. Easy with the temper. The walls weren't what I wanted to slice to pieces. That rage needed to be aimed at the company. Couldn't they say I've been happy with 2 planets, I growled. It's not like we're a threat. Some people just like to dominate. Rokel's whiskers drooped. We can't change that. I went back to the hole I'd dug and enlarged it enough so, we're missing a so there, we wouldn't have to squeeze through. My anger at the company lent me the energy I needed to complete the work. My stomach growled. We got the mine open, so let's see if Mom's back. Please let her have food, I prayed. We crawled up through our hole out of the mine shaft. I shook some of the dust from my fur as the breeze caught the dust particles light from the milky sun reflected off them. Bare, rocky mountains spread around us in a valley below. Ramshackle buildings and tents huddled in a tight group, as if their proximity would be able to break some of the bitter Locostwan winds. About half of the shelters were rock, reminders of a time decades ago when the mines were open. Tents stood beside the blocky stone buildings. They'd been brought in by us, the refugees from the plains. Torf refugees strutted through the tents, their long tails swishing back and forth. Even this far north, none of them wore clothes. Not that they needed them, with a theropodian anatomy and feathery bodies. A few wore belts and slings to support rifles, while others had packs. I headed down the hill toward the village. Rokel followed, swatting at his fur and raising clouds of dust. A few Torf guards with rifles stood around the edges of the village, their eyes on the horizon and the sky. I doubted these guards would be much help. If the company attacked, the refugees wouldn't stand a chance. Guards or no guards. The only way to survive the company was to be underground. As usual, the guards watched us. Even though I hadn't reached my full height, I still stood a head taller than almost all the females and many of the males. Your mother's still out foraging, one of the older guards said when we came within earshot. The scales on her face were rough, betraying age, and her skin hung loosely. She hadn't been getting enough food. No one had. I bowed my head to her. A Locostwan custom. I couldn't keep the names of hundreds of Torfs straight, but every one of them knew who we were. Why? Oh, that's why. In a village of Torfs, 3 red Elbas stuck out. My stomach growled. The Torf wasn't the only one on the edge of starvation. I prayed Mom would find something good. Do you know of any jobs around here? I glanced at Rokel. My brother and I might be young, but we're good diggers. We'd work for food. The old Torf sighed. I'm sorry, girl. There's no work here unless you can find some Ben steel in that mine. She shivered and fluffed her feathers. I should have known better. Any steel in this region had been mined out long before the war started. A downy Torf who couldn't have been older than 7 ran to me and held up his clawed hand, silently begging for food. Sorry, I don't have anything. I looked away, but not in time to miss the kid's frown deepen in disappointment. The Torf kids had to be getting pretty hungry if they'd risk begging from someone who stood at least a head taller than their parents. At the edge of the village, a half-dozen Torf children near Rokel's age hopped around a pile of rocks that had once been a building. All of them carried short spears. Bet they've got a horn snake, Rokel said. He took off toward the rock pile. Come on, we can help get it. My mouth watering, I ran after him. A feathery horn snake was the best we could hope for, with the area too cold and barren to support many things bigger than insects. Rokel knelt on the pile of rocks, his huge ears twitching. I watched from the bottom of the pile. A second elbow would only get in the way of the quick-moving Torfs. The Torfs focused on Rokel, their heads cocked like they hoped to hear the horn snake. Rokel pounced and rolled a large rock to the side. The Torfs came in behind him, their spears lifted. Rokel kept rolling the rocks. The Torfs wouldn't be able to hear the horn snake, not like Rokel could. Rokel rolled away an enormous rock. A horn snake that had to be at least as long as I was, tall, zipped from under the rock, its 6 little legs skittering as it slithered, a snake with legs. One of the Torf kids stabbed at it with a spear. The snake lost a few feathers. And feathers. But kept going. An older Torf child lashed out, striking the snake with her 3-toed foot. The snake went flying, hit the ground, and bounced. It tried to crawl again, though the Torf's long inner claw had injured it. A third Torf leaped off the rock pile and speared the snake through the neck. The snake writhed, its tiny legs flailing. The children cheered, happy to have found food at last. Not only was the snake long, but it still had some meat on it. The winter had been kinder to it than it had been to us. The 8 of us quickly plucked the snake and cut it into sections. If we mixed it with native roots, we'd each have enough for a meal. And that is the end of Jessie's 1500 words.